Well, hey everybody. Well, we're back, and as I said, skipped about 5 minutes, and we are back now. And I am going to preface my remarks with something I really believe needs to be said. I don't take what I'm about to do lightly. I regard Ray Bobbitt as a friend. However, I feel that someone must discuss and explain and complain about a series of actions that have added up to a behavior that is not kosher. And Ray Bobbitt was one of Zenny 62 Media's, and is still one of Zenny 62 Media's first shareholders. That doesn't mean he put money into this. He didn't. I gave him that money in the form of shares, because they have value, as a gift for thanking him for treating me at the time in a way different than others were treating me regarding the Raiders issue, and just simply being a person who uh, had experience working for the redevelopment agency and had carved out a niche regarding tax increment financing, in addition to working with the NFL and being Oakland's only representative to try and form a bid. Well, we did not try, we did form a bid to bring the Super Bowl to Oakland. We lost to Jacksonville in 2000 for the 2005 game. So all of that ball of wax, if you will, led to his shares of Zenny 62 Media stock. Zenny 62 Media is a Delaware company. What happened since then over time is, I think, best addressed by him, because I don't understand it. But it's along the same lines of treatment as Ray did to Brien Dixon. I see, I hear him now. And Karim Muhammed, with respect to literally kicking them out of manager positions in AASEG, not in the formal way by saying, hey, you broke a law and therefore there's a moral clause that you violated or anything like that. Just simply playing bait and switch. Their name on one set of initial documents for the statement of operations for the original LLC called the African American Sports Entertainment Group, and then Ray Bobbitt setting up not one, not two, not three, but four different AASEG LLCs. The one you read about in the mainstream news is called AASEG Land, thereby trying to say, hey, look, without saying it to the world, Brien Dixon and Karim Muhammed have no connection. That was wrong. And there are other behaviors as well that go along with that. So let me begin with this piece titled Ray Bobbitt and Oakland AASEG. Documents show he froze out original partners. That's it. The effort to save the Raiders, then sue the Raiders, that gave birth to the Oakland-based African American Sports Entertainment Group, sadly degenerated into a power play by one man, determined to elevate his stature. That man is Ray Bobbitt. A recently filed lawsuit claims that Mr. Bobbitt, a San Francisco nightclub owner and Raiders fan, joined with Raider Nation leaders the late Godfather Griz, Greg Jones, rest in peace, Russell Rivera to a lesser extent. Russell wasn't really involved, but I feel it's necessary to add his name to this as an initial player in the game, because he was at the initial meetings with some of them. Brien Dixon, Karim Muhammed, and Levant Ogbulie. only to double cross all but Mr. Obulie. Now, Zenny 62 Media has unearthed documents that the plaintiffs claim back the lawsuit, and to anyone who's seen them, they do. What Ray Bobbitt appears to have done is like what Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook's founder and CEO, did to Eduardo Sandoval and the Winklevoss twins in starting Facebook. Start AASEG right under the collective noses of Mr. Dixon and Mr. Muhammad. In conversations with Karim Muhammed and Brien Dixon in preparation for this post, one not sponsored by any party other than Zenny 62 Media Incorporated, of which Mr. Bobbitt, I have said, is a shareholder, both were caught completely by surprise when they learned of the filing of not just one, but 4 different versions of the African American Sports Entertainment Group, and with different names, most notably AASEG Land among them. All 4 LLCs have just one manager, Raymond Bobbitt. What happened is that first on September 29, 2020, Mr. Bobbitt entered into a process to form an LLC called, quote, African American Sports Entertainment Group, and with different names, most notably, as I said, AESCG Land. But initially, the LLC that was called African American Sports Entertainment Group had Mr. Muhammad, Dixon, and Mr. Obulie. And again, Russell Rivera was not an official part of the effort, but from this author's recollection, he didn't really want to be. Meanwhile, Godfather Griz sadly passed away on July 20th, 2020, after a battle with cancer at 54 years old. This author, while part of the larger group of Raiders fans contributing to the effort to keep the team in Oakland, was not part of the formation of AASEG. This author was focused on building a then newly formed media startup, Zenny 62 Media Incorporated. I was obsessed with getting Zenny 62 Media established as a Delaware corporation with stock. In other words, a tech startup. Mr. Bobbitt was added as a Zenny 62 Media shareholder according to a letter dated July 14th, 2021 to reward him for, quote, compensation as required for your active work in helping me grow our business. Including, hey, coming on the show, talking about AASEG, having this press conference, and so on. That was it. As the Muhammad Dixon lawsuit lays out in detail, however, Ray Bobbitt and Levant Ogbulie made a number of changes to documents related to what AASEG was originally trying to do that in total consolidated power and control to Mr. Bobbitt himself. The trouble is, according to the lawsuit, which provides a good detailed history, Karim and Brien were not signing the papers, to allow this newly formed set of LLCs to be completely in effect with respect to management. All right, with respect to the changeover. All right. Ray thought he could do a song and dance and give them a reason why to sign these papers. In other words, effectively asking them to stick their heads in a collective noose, as if they were fools enough to do so. You can't make this stuff up. All right? All right? In other words, as they recently said to me, they knew what Ray was allegedly doing, working to try to get them to sign a paper to free them from his being one of his co-managers last November 2023. All right. not last year, but 2 years before, excuse me. Last November 2023, before Thanksgiving, I said to Ray Bobbitt that he should contact the Muhammad Dixon team and work out an agreement for all to come together as one so as not to embarrass the Oakland Black business community and the Oakland-Alameda County Coliseum Joint Powers Authority. Bobbitt turned our conversation to one where he claimed they don't like you, Zenny. My response was that I could care less. How they feel about me had zero to do with, their actions. And I was going to continue to press the issue because how they feel about me had zero to do with my actions. But for Ray to go there was disturbing to me. In other words, instead of acknowledging what he did, he tried to get me on his side, by saying, they don't like you. Now, the truth of the matter is this. We argue like, brothers. So what? I may think something that they say is ridiculous. They may think something I say is stupid, but we're still friends. And we all have a great affection for each other as friends. And so that's common, standard, all right? That's the way things should be. You don't sandbag your friends, all right? You argue with them, but you don't sandbag them, okay? Ray was basically explaining to me why I should approve of what he had done. In other words, hey, they don't like you, so you should love what I do. I mean, I like you, all right? That's essentially the way he was presenting it, okay? So, all right? So, my response again was I could care less. Bobbitt said that he was tired of arguing with them, and that was what led to the move that he made. I don't care. It was still wrong to do. And if it sounds like I'm explaining this from a more of a first person rather than a remove reporter position, I have to. Because we all have been involved either formally in their case or informally in my case in what became AASEG, even if I didn't want to have anything to do with it. And my raison d'etre for not wanting to have anything to do with it was simply that when they started it, they were so far along that by the time I got wind of it and I was doing Zenny 62 Media and working on it, I thought, hey, you know what? They got their thing. I got mine. That was the reason. Okay. All right. That was it. And I went on and continued to produce my thing, if you will. But I was always there to answer any questions or provide any advice or help. There was never any rancor about this at all. Except there was this issue at the time of my assertion that our filing a lawsuit for the name and colors was ridiculous. Or I think he once used the term stupid. They took offense to that. My reasoning was that we already lost an antitrust case. We were not going to win another one, no matter how esteemed Jim Quinn, our attorney, was. And still is. Okay? I believe that we should have teamed up with St. Louis and had a lawsuit that followed parallel paths. Okay? I believe that had we done that, we would have enjoyed the same kind of $760 million judgment reward as a city and joint powers authority that St. Louis enjoyed. Instead, what do we have? Big goose egg. We got nothing. All right? That was the only issue that divided us. But it was a big issue to them. Not as big to me. Because, hey, I like to argue anyway. I believe I'm right about that thing. But it became, with them, a very, very, very deep cut of a difference of opinion that divided us for a time. that has to be put on the table. Ray wasn't treating me like that. And Ray, over time, as he was hatching his plan for separation, used my position, essentially tried to use it against them, and in a sense against me, by saying, hey, they don't like you, but I do. And my argument was, you know what? Two wrongs don't make a right. You don't sandbag somebody because you have a difference of opinion. You try to work out something with them, especially when you, Ray, have established this LLC with them, and you all need to move forward as one. Also, I warned Ray about naming it the African American Sports Entertainment Group. I warned him. We had long talks about this 3 years ago. I said to him, I said, look, you don't want to send the message that you're the black person or organization in the corner that is looking up at the white person and saying, oh, massa, help me. You want to approach this as a clear business effort that's multiracial, but of course it benefits African Americans by those who are involved. You make the statement by photographs, but you focus on competence and completion. Ray completely disagreed with me. Oh no, they got to see us coming. And I resented the idea that he would think of it as they, white, gotta, meaning make them, see black folks. Forget it. As far as I'm concerned, in my life, that has been a recipe for disaster, both inside with a group of people that, you want to behave that way because eventually start turning against each other, right? And then outside with the world economically, which sees you as just the black group and therefore devalues you in many different ways, particularly through the media. I warned Ray several times. He insisted that his approach was the right one. All right. So, but that was water under the bridge by the time Godfather Griz passed, the AASEG got going, and just before this, what he was doing came to light. All right. Now, the situation became this. The Bobbitt American Sports Entertainment Group was really the focus. What Ray has tried to do is create not the AASEG or African American Sports Entertainment Group. What Ray's tried to do is create the Bobbitt American Sports Entertainment Group. With this cosmetic, though illegal change, let's face it, Mark Zuckerberg had to pay $60 million to Eduardo Sandoval alone after a stirring court session. Ray, the man who managed to put on a Mr. Rogers face for the cameras, has done what he's done is not legal. Mr. Muhammad and Mr. Dixon didn't break the law in any way. The common reason for seeking a change in partnerships is just that. Hey, morals clause. Hey, you did something untoward. We're going to have to separate, right? You hurt our value, all that stuff. No, nothing like that. All right. Nothing like that. Many law firms openly state that, quote, in most cases, a business partner can't push you out. As Dallas-based law firm Wood Edwards LLP states right on its website. But Ray tried to pretend that Karim and Brien didn't exist at all. And by the way, I did try to find a black law firm online that talked about this, but hey, this is something to pay attention to when you're designing a website. Make sure that you can be found in search for issues like this. I searched, Wood and Edward LLP came up. I was on a time crunch, and there they were. Okay, but I digress. But Ray tried to pretend that Karim and Brien didn't exist at all. What Now, what does the lawsuit against Ray Bobbitt call for? The lawsuit that was filed in Alameda County Superior Court and was first reported in the San Francisco Business Times, all right? Apparently leaked to Ron Luty, okay, my friend. But the lawsuit calls for a jury trial. On top of that, Dixon and Muhammad seek the world. Damages, lawyers' fees, removal of Bobbitt and Ogbulie from the African American Sports Entertainment Group, audit of bank accounts, a declaratory judgment against the following people: Samantha Wise, Jonathan Jones, John Jones III, and Lanice Jones, saying that they should not be members of the AASEG LLC. And that's where it all settles. Now, how does this impact the JPA? What's the so what with respect to the athletics? Well, the so what is this. You might have seen on Twitter, Rebecca put this out. Oakland council member Rebecca Kaplan put out this tweet not too long ago. And it bears taking a look. Right, going to down here. And 5 hours ago, let me get it here. Present, share screen, and there, this one. And I'll zoom in. Okay. This is in response, for the most part, to Casey Pratt's claim that the JPA essentially sandbagged the Roots by not following through with the JPA meeting. That really wasn't the case, all right, as I presented to Casey privately. The reason is that, and I'll say this before I get to what's in front of you, the Oakland Roots issue is closed session. The JPA meeting could have been held, and everyone went in the closed session and then done nothing, and the public would not have been the wiser one way or the other, because closed session issues are, well, supposed to be just that, closed session. There was no reason to cancel the entire meeting for the Roots issue, because again, it's what? Closed session. What I believe happened, knowing Rebecca, is she wanted to avoid the obvious gigantic crowd of people that were going to cyber find their way to the JPA meeting and clog up the agenda with desire upon desire upon desire upon desire upon desire to speak. And as I remind people, the JPA has one staff member, Renee Savage, assisting Henry Gardner, who is the executive director. And that is it. And at that time, they're already a month behind schedule, now they're 2 months behind schedule. Rebecca said the meeting of the JPA was going to be rescheduled. Not that she intended to do it in terms of completely canceling it and not returning. No, not at all. So for Casey to put out the idea that, hey, the JPA did this, that's it, they're sandbagging the Roots, was wrong. I know Casey's upset that Rebecca is not responding to media requests for interviews. I get that. But it doesn't mean that he has to take the avenue of putting out information that's not substantiated at all. Oh, sure, there may be people who, like other commissioners, who say, because there are a number of commissioners. I know Nate Miley didn't know about it. If you take it as a whole, there's no commissioner on the Joint Powers Authority who was aware that the meeting was going to be canceled or why. All were completely surprised. That was Rebecca's action as chair. And I'm explaining to you why she did it. It had nothing to do with the roots. And that's what she's trying to say here when she posts this, essentially this statement. And I'll zoom in more. All right? And more. Roots and Soul Soccer are building with and committed to community. I and my colleagues are committed to ensuring they have a strong and successful future in Oakland. And so are our partners on the development of the Coliseum property. And then she has AASEG, Oakland Roots, and Oakland Soul. Now, the simple fact of the matter, this refers to the cooperation agreement, which I think is worth taking a look at. All right? But for this, but point I'm making is this is what Rebecca is saying. Hey, look, there's no problem here. There's no sandbagging intended. And I'm telling you, she did it because she wanted to put some distance between the JPA meeting and the just occurred meeting with the athletics the day before. Now, was it something she should have done? My argument is no. All right, my argument is no. And it may very well be that she didn't believe that they were prepared to have that meeting for other reasons, having to do with time spent on the A's issue, which gets to why we need a professional staff beyond 2, like 10, okay, for the JPA. Because Rebecca can't be staff member and council member at the same time and expect to be effective. It also invites possible accusations of corruption. In short, it is a bad design and a bad look. A bad design and a bad look. All right? But here it is. Let's see some of the comments that were made. Excuse me, not like that, but like this. A blanking article from May of 2023 is your answer for canceling the meeting yesterday. This is a joke. Do not extend the A's lease until we get a team. That's an advertisement. Don't forget Kaplan was against the A's in the first place and wanted a WNBA that SF ultimately got. Kaplan is against the Roots, Soul, A's. Pretty much anything Oakland sports track record proves a lot. I will say that's wrong. Okay? Rebecca Kaplan was the one who, along with Joe Lacob, almost same time, and I have the video to prove it, back in 2014 at my Oakland Sports Forum, to call for a WNBA team for Oakland. That was her focus. You have to give her credit for that, and I insist that everybody do so. When it comes to other sports, I think Rebecca has done a good job of staying in her lane for the most part, with the exception of the athletics, because I'm not convinced there are technical issues regarding it having to do with financing that she completely grasps. It's not that she can't. She's whipper smart, but it's time. She's a council member spread in a million different directions. Plus, she's a parent at home and a wife. So you have to pick your poison. And at times, I think Rebecca does a less than optimal job of doing that. Not that she doesn't do a good job, but I said less than optimal. All right? So there you go. So there's words. How about some answers? How about some drawings? Okay, anyway. Why did you cancel the meeting? All right. Still not an answer as to why the meeting was canceled, although I think I know why. It was not the A's. This is the reason why this city is upside down, because wrong priority. That article is 9 months old. Where's the action on this? Without public safety, this will be a disaster. Don't mess this up. You and your colleagues will chase both teams out of Oakland, guaranteed. Yeah, there's a good possibility of that. This is you and your colleagues' priority. If so, all of you should be voted out and stay home. Put your time into this. Let those who really care about the state of Oakland think care. It's like a third world and your officials are coming into sports. What the blank is going on here? Answer the question, or at least explain why you can't answer it. Political spin garbage makes you look very weak. All right. So that's the, rancor behind that. But regarding AASEG, I believe that the job of economic development in Oakland is to do capacity building for those people who don't have what it takes to complete a big project. Unfortunately, AASEG is in that corner because, well, it doesn't matter who you look at. In this instance, they all spent their time on issues of personal power. Ray Bobbitt, in trying to X out his colleagues, Brien and Karim, to try to avoid being X'd out. So if you're back there saying Ray started it, you would be right. But Ray's focus has not been on the techniques of development or financing, ever. All right? He's more content to leave it to Loop Capital, as if Loop is the expert. I don't know that Loop Capital has ever developed a ballpark or a stadium. Okay? It's one thing to say that someone has the money. That's not the point. It's what you do with the project you're designing and the financial flows you expect from it. If you put money into it as a private organization, you expect to get money out of it in some kind of way. If you're going to do it as a private placement, you have very wealthy investors around the world who expect to get their cut. If you have a government, the government wants its cut in terms of accessibility to the facility. It doesn't matter which way you turn, everybody wants their cut. The question is, what's the rate of return on that investment from who you're asking for it from, over what period of time? And if it's the government, to what degree are you going to make certain the community is happy with what it gets? And the only way to assert that is to design the city within a city that shows them how this is going to behave. That's the way you have to do it. So at this point, I assert that AASEG does not have that capacity, and I assert that it's the city's job, when it pushes out a black firm and they base it on color, to make absolutely certain that effort doesn't fall on the collective face of the city of Oakland and the Joint Powers Authority. And right now, that's precisely what is poised to happen. I was informed yesterday that Loop Capital has no interest in investing any more money in AASEG beyond the $3 million it put in. Okay? I got that information yesterday. That's sad, but it's also a logical step given where this is not going. All right? So Rebecca and Nate and everybody else, you have to figure out, and I've said this privately before, how you want to handle this situation and then handle it. And I don't think it's pushing out AASEG and, just like that. Because that would be the ultimate slap in the face to those who really are just trying to, I object to the way Ray did it, but I don't object to his community focus. I object that it was the only focus. But I understand his intent. I understand what he's trying to do. And he did stick his neck out. He did put his money up. And I think those are actions to be applauded. This is a case of not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. It's a case of helping the baby grow and bringing the baby's brothers back together. Now, I know that's not what Karim and Brien want, but really it's the best for all parties. The rancor has to stop, because in too many places, and I say this on Black History Month, in too many places in society in America, we have black people putting other black people down, essentially being the white supremacists, while claiming there's this, and there is, racist boogie person out there. And we've seen that. Look at the Karens that get captured on video, right? But then look at the number of commercials we have today that feature people who look like me paired with someone who looks like you if you're white, or me as the man and you as white female, and us married. It's America. And you can thank, unfortunately, the passing of George Floyd for where we are today. But think about when that occurred. That wasn't 1955. That wasn't Emmett Till. That was 2020. In other words, it was in our time. And it proves that we still have a long way to go. We haven't fixed law enforcement. The idea was supposed to be to reform police, but reform police turned into defund when the non-white progressives got involved. Let's just be honest. And started changing the narrative to say, hey, look, defund. And then the pandemic came, and guess what? Defunding became a very idiotic thing to do. But then no one said, or few said, hey, reform, reform, reform. Okay? We should have been on the reform kick, period. But I digress. The point is, America racially is really headed in the right direction, but we're not moving there fast enough for some. And the weaker the economy gets, the slower racial progress is. That's the fact. I wish it wasn't. Into this entire maelstrom comes Ray Bobbitt and his effort against other black people. It's not unlike the black hostess at a restaurant who feels like they can't give you the appropriate treatment because they don't want to be seen as giving special treatment to someone black, when in point of fact, they're giving the right treatment to someone who might happen to be disabled and need a chair. Why did I put that out there? Because that happened to me in Las Vegas last week before the Super Bowl. So we as people have to learn to steel ourselves to protect each other. It doesn't mean who you date. That's a personal issue. All right? Like for me, for example, when I was coming up, I went to Avalon Park Elementary in Chicago. You had to either fight or play basketball well to be respected at Avalon. I did neither well. I wasn't sought after by the girls. Came to Oakland, California, found a number of people, most who didn't look like me, into Star Trek. I helped start the Star Trek Club at Bret Hart, became its first president, and had a fantastic time. And I found my niche. And what happened was that the women that I liked during the time, who were black, who were consistently rejecting me because I wasn't an athlete, even in Oakland. because of the fact that I found another group, I was able to gain friends who were like-minded. Many of them white, Asian, Hispanic, black. A multicultural, right? But that's my personal story. So you find in that, in my case, woman, and I didn't get married, but friends, girlfriends that are right for you as a black person. And sometimes, and a lot of the times, they're not black. The good news about how we're advancing in society is it's okay to be the kind of black person I am today. Whereas then I got called all kinds of names, Poindexter, you name it, right? More so in Chicago than in Oakland. In Oakland, I found myself. That was the beauty of Oakland then. And it's still the beauty of Oakland today. But again, it's a personal story. If you know who you are as an ethnicity, you can then have the confidence it takes to take yourself in any audience or crowd out there. I was in Tokyo, 1987, trying to get to the airport, a sea of Japanese people. And for a split second, I thought no one's going to help me until I realized the raison d'etre for my thinking, because they're Japanese and I perceived me as not. And I thought, wait a minute, I'm human. I need help. And I said, hey, I need help. And a fellow turned around and said, hey, how can I help you? He's Japanese. He spoke great in English. See what I'm talking about? Mindset. So it's growth. That's why I'm happy to be chairman of the International Trade Council's Digital Commerce Business Council, a worldwide group of people now that I call friends. Some in the UK, Florida, Middle East, Singapore, Taiwan, Australia, and so on. I know who I am, and they know who they are. But what Ray Bobbitt has to become comfortable with is who he is as a black person, and realize that it's a beautiful thing to build an organization with other black people. Some who don't have a lot, maybe they don't know certain things, but they're friends and brothers. He doesn't need to sandbag them. That should be the lesson of this, and it should be the lesson for him. All right. I'll see you all later.